Can I show you something stupid though? Something else stupid, I guess. Something as stupid as Charlie Kirk, if that's even possible. This is CSL picked this clip just because of the thumbnail. Shocking discovery. I don't know what is Glenn. What's the shocking discovery? His nunt. Good Lord. I'm sorry I don't have the nunt thing up. Like that is. It looks like he's staring right at it. Like Jesus. How do you have? What is? I mean, dude, you're so vain. You've had like 2 scalp reductions and plugs and all that shit. Go get the little shit. What do they do? That little thing where they put staples under your jaw or whatever, like um the like no surgery facelift thing, right? Is it a chin tuck? Right. Okay. I see ads for it on Fox News all the time. So you would think that he would do it, right? So this is look at the title of this: How the Department of Education Abolished Itself. President Trump is signing an executive order to start dismantling the Department of Education, and the left is freaking out. Okay. Not really. I think it's stupid. I think it's misinformed. I think it's gross. I think it's definitely has a racist tinge to it, because these guys tend to think that the Department of Education is really about black schools. That's where that's the Stephen Miller feeling about this. The issue I have with it, well, I'll show you, because there's another. Let's just go to this. This is Maria Bartiromo. And Bartiromo says, here we go again. U.S. denies his request from Mexico for the first time. So this is about the water request, non-treaty, by the way, which was optional anyways, but we'll show you that. Okay, here we go.
Well, welcome back. Well, the United States is rejecting Mexico's request for a special water delivery to Tijuana. The State Department writes this on X: Mexico's continued shortfalls in its water deliveries under the 1944 Water Sharing Treaty are decimating American agriculture, particularly farmers in the Rio Grande Valley. As a result, today, for the first time, the U.S. will deny Mexico's non-treaty request for a special delivery channel for Colorado.
This is from the Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs, a bureau of bureaucrats, I suppose, that unelected officials. The WHO Assistant Secretary sent this out on Shitter. This is so lame.
River water to be delivered to Tijuana. Joining me now is U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins. Secretary, good to have you. Thanks very much for being here. Feels like we're...
Yikes. Why does everyone have to look like a Real Housewife? Why?
In another fight with Mexico.
Well, here we go again. I was just there 2 days ago. Today I'm at the White House, obviously, but 2 days ago.
Obviously, that's not Mexico, right?
I was down in the Rio Grande Valley with those very farmers that you just mentioned on the program. They are absolutely decimated. It is close to, the sugar mill has closed. There were only 3 states in the country that were had a sugar mill. Texas has now closed ours. Now we're down to 2 states because of Mexico not living up to its part in that water treaty.
First of all, do they have enough water to share? Is there enough water for them to live? Because you really can only share water as a resource when you have enough. And P.S., it looks awfully fucking green in that picture. I don't want to help these assholes with their marketing, but maybe it's Texas. Find a patch of desert to have everybody meet in front of, and maybe don't even use green trucks, because it feeds into, where the fuck are they, in a suburb? Like,
some additional funds thanks to Congress to help those farmers down there. But listen, that's not a short-term.
Sorry, some federal funds, some tax dollars from other states.
We released some additional funds thanks to Congress to help those farmers down there. But listen, that's not a short-term fix. The fix is Mexico.
That is a short-term fix. What you mean is that is a short-term fix. Or maybe it won't fix anything. Maybe it's you didn't add to it. Maybe it's left over from the Biden budget, which is exactly what it is.
Must live up to their side of the agreement. And hopefully we'll see some changes. I think the president is ready to really engage on this.
Well, you were also in San Juan, Texas yesterday. You did a roundtable on the challenges that farmers and ranchers are facing in the Rio Grande Valley. What specific challenges do you see, and how is it impacting their ability to do business?
Yeah. So what could be the problem? Not enough government subsidies, I think, clearly, right?
Listen, they don't have water, and these are third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh generation farmers.
Work with me on this. Maybe, just maybe, that 7 generations ago, there was a lot more water there. But because of climate change, over time, there's less water. It's a possibility. I'm just floating that. 7 generations ago, there was a lot of water in the area, and then over time, it goes away because maybe something's changing in the environment that maybe impacts the flow of. All right.
I and Senator Cruz and Congresswoman De La Cruz met with, and for the first time in decades, in generations, in 100 years, they can't plant their crops because they don't.
Because they don't. Why? Because what?
Know whether they will have the water.
Okay.
One farmer there, Maria, actually talked about how he normally plants 6,000 acres of citrus. He's now down to 4,000 potentially.
Huh. And that wouldn't be because of, I don't know, environmental resource limitations, perhaps from climate that.
Down to 2,000. And not only can they not survive, right? These farms will close, but Mexico is planting on their side of the border, Chihuahua and other places, pecan trees, other things that take a ton of water.
Motherfuckers. Yeah, because you know how big pecans are in Mexican cooking. Sorry. Welcome to Picante, man. We've renamed the whole place after Picante, because we got pecan tacos and, it has nothing to do with white trash appetite for pecan pie all through the South of America. Jesus Christ. Who do you think they're selling the pecans to, dummy?
They're not delivering to our farmers. They're decimating our farmers while they're building their agriculture industry and
Sorry, who they're building whose? So there's like this, what is it, like a Mexico first policy?
the agreement under that 1944 water treaty, but no more, no more.
Okay, well, we'll be watching that one. I also want to get your take on.
Wait, so let me get this straight. Mexico is using water for the farms that they have to have goods that they're going to consume themselves or sell to someone else or sell to us. And our response is to choke the water out of Tijuana. I got news for you. The Mexican government would happily trade Tijuana for arable land to grow crops on. Stupid. Jesus Christ. I don't know if anybody even consumes water in Tijuana. I think they actually they make tequila soup.
President Trump's executive order yesterday, of course, he signed an order dismantling the Department of Education.
Right, which won't. But let's watch as Maria puts 2 and 5 together and comes up with the third coefficient of minus carry the 2 and the letter B somehow.
Is this going to impact the Department of Agriculture's ability to run the National School Lunch Program?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
No, it will not. And listen, I worked with the president in the first term here at the White House in his West Wing, on his West Wing crew, and then
turd crew. Just say turd crew. I think that's the best. Turd crew. Yeah.
In the interim, the 4 years in the interim, obviously launched the America First Policy Institute. Education has always been a massive part of this president's vision on how we take the country back. But most of
back to a time before we had public education. Sure.
Was how we return that to the states, how we let the states and the locals under the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, where it should be, how we let them run their own education program.
They do. They do. They can. But this might shock you. If they have more students than they have the budget for, they need the tax dollars from other states as the standard. So in using the tax dollars from other states, through the federal application of tax dollars and their representatives in government say, okay, we'll give you some of that money, but it's got to be doled out in a way that actually addresses the educational standards that should be there and not, end up funding Liberty fucking University.
As it relates to USDA and our school lunch program, that is a USDA program. It will continue. We're going to refine it. We're going to reform it. We're going to better align it to make sure it's achieving its stated goals, which, as we're now realizing, so much of the federal government is not achieving their stated goals, their original mission.
Well, now that you guys are in, yeah.
But yeah, that will not affect the work in the school lunch programs. And I think what Secretary McMahon is doing.
Sure shit isn't going to improve it.
Her leadership there in implementing the president's vision is just a game changer for education in this country.
Yeah.
Also, education, not a game.
Well, I mean, certainly many states look forward to it. They feel that they could do a better job than the bureaucracy of the federal government. But
they were doing a great job before the implementation of the Department of Education in the first place, weren't they? Look at those hungry kids that were being fed so easily and so uniformly throughout all the red states before the Department of Education started. Look at the education standards in the United States before it started. Look at the literacy level. Oh, wait, they didn't even fucking check in a lot of these states until they were made to.
We're facing a deadline today, the Agricultural Department facing a deadline today to release $10 billion in economic assistance for farmers. Secretary.
Why would they even need that? Don't they have the greatest deal maker in the history of deals that are made?
Held a roundtable in Georgia. You were talking about how the president's tariffs will impact farmers and ranchers there. We've got new Fox News polls show that voters have major doubts about the tariffs. Nearly 70%.
You don't say. The tariffs
Say that they will make products more expensive.
By the way, who the fuck are these people? Who in the fuck? I mean, honestly, look, I can believe that you can think it would be no difference if you're just sucking up to Trump. And I understand more expensive because that's facts. But who the fuck are these people? Who are the 7%ers? These are the people why we need the Department of Education to exist.
A majority thinks the
or proof positive that it sucks, I guess.
Will hurt the economy and the jobs market. Are you expecting agricultural products to be more?
Also, help. That's Trump. That's the Trump base. But that's the actual Trump base. That's 35%. This is them starting to wane on this idea. This business, hilarious. Again, I don't know. They don't even have a no opinion part of this.
Expensive as a result of tariffs, Secretary.
This president's vision of tariffs being such an important part of his toolkit as he begins.
Toolkit? He's got a fucking rubber mallet with tariff written on it, and it's a solution for everything. What are you talking about, toolkit? It seems to be the only thing he's got. At this point, I think he's probably brought up tariffs in the Ukraine-Russia negotiations, you dum-dum.
Realign the economy to put America first, to put our men and women.
Oh, you mean like Mexico's doing with their citizenry about the pecan farms?
Families first. Everybody knows. And when they voted in November of 2024, they knew that's what they were voting for.
Yeah, but we knew that's what we were voting against, moron. And this, but understand the depth of that sentence, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to this again, because what she's saying is buyer beware to Trump's voters. Look, stop bitching. You knew this was going to happen. He said he was going to do this, and you guys were like, "Oh no, baby, he's bluffing." That's what that was.
First, to put our men and women, our families first. Everybody knows, and when they voted in November of 2024, they knew that's what they were voting for.
Yeah, but you're assuming that putting our people and our families first and idiotic rubber mallet tariff, uh, uh, tariffs as a solution for every fucking thing are the same. They aren't. As a matter of fact, I would say they are directly in conflict. This is what I'm talking about with two trains leaving the station at the same time. These things are headed for a collision.
As we see the president begin to roll out, as we see him hold accountable Canada with their 250.
Canada. Grow the fuck up. Nobody's impressed by this, by the way. I mean, I think there's some people who think this is a dunk and like it on Twitter or something, but everybody else is like, what the fuck is up with you in Canada?
Tariffs on our dairy products, as they see him hold accountable Mexico, China, all of these countries where, we have a 5%.
Oh, you mean the two countries he negotiated the greatest trade deal ever with, which apparently sucks and doesn't work and is easy to violate and left out, I don't know, food as one of the trade elements of it between Canada and Mexico for the USMCA. Remember the greatest trade deal ever? Which apparently had to come in and go, oh my God, this fucking sucks. Who allowed them to do this? You did, dummy. Also, China has just simply cut the cost. He put a 10% tariff on them instead of the 25 he's threatening on Mexico and Canada. You know what China's response was? They uniformly cut the cost of goods 10%. Hadn't done shit. And he knows it. He's allowing it. He's okay with it.
On our end, when our products go out, they've got 15%, 3 times. This is on average on their end when their products come in. It's not fair, and it's got to be equalized as we move toward more free trade. Now, the president has been.
Whoa. First of all, more free trade. That's adorable. Secondly, free trade? No.
Clear, as has Secretary Lutnick, that there may be an interim period as.
Guys, it's excellent. Thank you very much. Excellent. It's an interim period, guys. It's just an interim period. Remember how much shit they gave the Biden administration about transitory inflation? Interim period.
Readjusting the entire economy. But listen,
readjusting the entire economy. Are you fucking insane? Do that. Please have these assholes go down to Wall Street and ring the fucking bell and go, we're so excited to readjust the entire economy. You know how you do that? You turn us into a communist country where the oligarchs have all their businesses run by tax dollars. Hello, Elon Musk. That's exactly what you're talking about.
Change takes disruption.
Yeah.
Change takes disruption. It's adorable, isn't it?
Transformation takes these harder decisions, and no one's willing to do that except now President Trump is. So obviously 100% behind it. I am.
Also, real quick, what guarantees do you have that the results, you will get the results you say you're going to get from transforming the entire economy? Because if you don't, what if you crater shit and you can't bring it back? What if you trigger a depression? What about that? And then what happens? You have to transform the government support for everyone, and then you get what? He just bails everybody out until the end of his term.
To farmers every single day, they know that the president has their back.
He's behind them with has their back. Jesus Christ, he's like He's got their back. He's behind them, walking out with suitcases of money.
And are prepared for potentially, you know, an interim period as we
prepared for an interim period, depression, recession, right? That's interim.
Toward what the president has said is the greatest age of prosperity, not just for all Americans, but for our farmers and our ranchers as well.
Yeah, it's, you know, the great thing is I know it's going to suck or whatever, but y'all just got to live with it. And then it's going to be so awesome when we restructure the entire economy. Nasara Jasara, y'all. That's, by the way, that's coming up again. That whole, like, you know, like crazy QAnon bullshit is popping up all over the place. He's going to do it, y'all. He's going to implement Nasara Jasara.
I mean, it's interesting because I don't think anybody understood the significant difference in tariffs. I mean, I don't think people realized a 200 tariff was there while we were giving a much lower one, or that we're at 5% and somebody else is at 15%. So the president has certainly spotlighted an important issue there.
Hey, asshole, we have those lower tariffs because we have money to spend and our citizenry can buy stuff cheaper. And we are a much larger economy than they are. So if they allowed themselves to be swamped by us, they would never be able to recover.
And as you say, you want to make an omelet, you got to, you know, crack some eggs.
Yeah, and by eggs, I mean poor people and their 401ks and maybe their homes and FEMA in case, you know, an emergency happens. And obviously the CDC, because we're never going to have another pandemic, y'all.
Speaking of eggs,
right.
You held a press conference yesterday. See how I did that?
No pun intended.
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
actually excellent, Maria.
Thank you. You talked about the response to the bird flu outbreak yesterday and the price of eggs. You say that the agency is ramping up eggs imports from
By the way, you'll notice that Trump said they were $2.50 everywhere.
South Korea and Turkey. The price of eggs dropping more than $3 this month compared to last month. Secretary, tell us about this. Are you expecting that the more eggs on the market will mean prices go lower and lower from here?
We are very hopeful, and in fact, I brought, just in case this came up, I brought a chart for you. You can see the cost.
Oh my God. We've got another Trump University graduate, folks. Bring a little, like, I got it right here. I have this poll right here that says I'm wonderful. Right.
Eggs and how it has increased and increased and increased. And then as the president
Yeah, that would be the bird flu epidemic. Yeah.
began to roll out the vision and our plan about 3 weeks ago.
The vision and your plan? You mean after the Biden administration culled all those chickens and then the chickens grew to an age, the new chickens grew to an age where they could start producing eggs again? That's that point in that fucking chart, you tit.
You can see almost a 50%, I think 53% decrease in the cost of eggs in just the last 3.5 weeks. Listen, not only the importation of eggs from Turkey and South Korea.
Gee, so production of eggs in the United States has gone down. But let me get this straight. We're importing it. Hold on 1 second. How many of our eggs are South Korea and Turkey buying? Okay. Why is there not a reciprocal tariff on that? Let me guess. 0 tariffs on buying eggs from fucking Turkey?
Short term, we're also talking to other countries. I was on a couple phone calls yesterday to potentially bring in some other eggs import.
So let me get this straight. Instead of solving this fucking problem, you're incorporating like an international, a globalist egg agenda. These this is nuts. This is fucking nuts. So and now all these countries, I guess, have like egg leverage on us now. Stupid. So what are they getting in return besides just selling eggs, which I'm sure they wouldn't have any trouble doing anywhere else?
The short term to help bring those costs down, but the long term, we're repopulating the cold birds a lot more quickly. The
cold birds. So these are refrigerated eggs. They come out refrigerated already.
Investing in biosecurity to lock the barns down, which has proven to be the most important solution to keeping the avian bird flu out. But listen, we're also
oh God. Yes, we know. That's what the Biden administration was doing.
regulating. I mean, it's not just the president's vision of deregulating the entire economy, getting government off the backs of our people.
Yeah, we need less regulation on farms where breakouts eliminate the entire population of chickens during that'll help. That'll help a lot. Yeah.
Effort. It's also deregulating in the agriculture industry. Earlier this week, we announced new line speeds for chickens for our poultry producers, which probably for most of your viewers, they don't know what that means. But what it means for our poultry producers is
less government intrusion on making these people wash their hands when they come back from using the toilet.
They can be more efficient and more effective in their production for Americans. Long-term.
More efficient and more productive. So they weren't efficient before. This regulation kept them from being efficient, did it? What was the efficiency problem caused by the regulation? Hand washing, sanitation. Yeah.
To therapeutics, vaccines, et cetera. We had a very bold plan that we released 3 or 4 weeks ago. And
oh, yes, by the way, they want to make sure you know that they are vaccinating all the chickens. That there was this organic bullshit going on for a long time where people were trying to keep these kind of things out of the chickens. But now we're going to go back to that because fuck it.
Reacted to that for multiples of reasons. So we're really glad to see the cost of eggs coming down for that single mom.
They're not. You're importing eggs from fucking Turkey and South Korea, dum-dum. The price of U.S. eggs isn't coming down. You're just adding supply from outside the country. You're right. You didn't solve the problem. You're not going to solve the problem.
Detroit, who's trying to figure out how she's going to make ends meet, especially under the last Biden economy.
Yeah.
Eggs are a low-cost, nutritious way to feed your family. I've got 4 teenagers. I understand. So it's a bit of good news as the president keeps effectuating this vision for
deregulating the safety standards. And look, we all know that eggs in particular aren't something that, are, delicate in any way or have led to outbreaks of disease in the past. So don't worry about it. Eggs, basically, you buy them and they're good until you need to use them. Shit, I don't even know why people refrigerate them. Can anybody think of a good reason? I mean, are there regulations about refrigerating eggs that are less efficient? Maybe if we just took the hot eggs right out of the cold birds and sent them, Jesus Christ, these fucking people. Fuck. This like the tap dance. And the weird part is that any maggot who's marginally deluded about this stuff, where they're not all in, but they like to believe they are, or their ego is too fucking weak to realize that to admit they've been flim-flammed and they have realized it already, has to be hearing this shit and going, oh my fucking God, these guys don't know what they're doing. They're going to poison people. We're going to have, and again, this is the libertarian philosophy that you hear a lot. Now, I would like to remind everyone that libertarianism is not a political philosophy. It is a douchey, unilateral, personal philosophy that you extrapolate onto the rest of society because you think you're a bootstrapper and you don't need any help from anybody else because you think your brain paves the road as you drive across the city, and every time you hit a pothole, that's what government did, not the rest of the road you drive on without even fucking thinking while you're on your goddamn phone. Libertarianism is like the laziest, most egomaniacal, pathetic excuse for a political philosophy that exists, and Rand Paul is the fucking poster child of it. All this stuff just happens. That there's water in the tap, and if the government didn't have all these regulations, my water bill wouldn't be this high. You'd also be dead, you dumb motherfucker, from lead poisoning and all kinds of other stuff a long time ago. So, this is part of this like deregulation thing is the libertarians around him, including these kind of like douchey elite bottled water libertarians who don't drink tap water or bathe in it or cook in it because they've got their own water softening system that they bought. They paid $10,000 for it in their thing, and they have somebody come and change the filter on it all the time, right? That's where it comes from. They think everybody has access to that kind of water, and if they don't, they kind of deserve to be poisoned. Why are we keeping these pathetic poor people alive in Appalachia? What, trying to purify their water? Isn't it their fault for living downstream from a coal plant? If they have birth defects and end up ditch diggers, hey, the world needs ditch diggers too. And so the Smales administration has decided that they're not worth saving. The maggots in general think that what the people that will be the first to go are inner city black people, because that's who they think are most on the tit for the government. And they aren't. Rural redneck America is. They rely on the government more than they can even fathom. And when it's gone, they're going to be the first to get sick and die. And if you want any more proof, look at the death rates in those areas after the government went after tobacco. When the government specifically, went after big tobacco and stopped all the ads and all that kind of stuff, it shaved off a big chunk of the death rate in those areas, because that's who that was for. All that stuff about, smoking and stuff, like the you don't want kids, smoking and that kind of stuff, and it was very important. And it's great to dissuade young kids who are impressionable and all that. But that was a veneer for the entire movement. The reality is that we were on the hook financially through Medicaid for all these fucking lung cancer and bronchitis and asthma cases all throughout the South. Poor white trash who cannot afford health care were weighing down the system. And if you can raise the price of cigarettes so that they can't afford them, you save so many of their lives that it saves a huge expense for Medicaid. It punts the cost of medicine, the Medicaid fund going bankrupt farther. The cost of of Medicare and Medicaid. That people can't buy a Tesla. I don't know. In China, they do it all the time. I don't know what you're talking about. No, kids smoke, and that was part of it. And it has value. Now, I would argue also the same thing was true for a while when drugs didn't necessarily kill you. They just made you intolerable. The war on drugs for a long time was about making sure kids didn't do drugs and worrying about, a brain drain that was being caused by these things over time. That's where it all came from, largely. Now, one of the things about the retreat in the war on drugs is, well, you can't save everybody, and these people are a fucking drag, so let's just let fentanyl kill them off. And that's what happened for the better part of like 7 years to a decade. As drugs got more intense, oxycodone, OxyContin snuck its way in, and opioids started wiping people the fuck out. They were like, you know what? Were they ever going to be useful to society? So they just like pulled, our pulling back from it was used by a lot of these red states to purge the more annoying members of their citizenry by just letting them poison themselves and die. And then it started to eke its way into colleges and universities like Miami and places like that. And these pills would be, that looked like Adderall and the like, fentanyl was being snuck in. And that's when you saw the Trump world, the Don Juniors of the world go, holy fuck, if I don't know exactly where this pill comes from, it could be fentanyl and I'll die. That's when they started to care. They didn't care when it was wiping out white trash people, couples dying in their fucking car of an overdose from a drug they didn't know was in what they were taking, with a fucking baby in the back while the hot car heats up, with two parents in the front dying of an overdose. They didn't give a shit about that. It was good to scare straight the neighbors, but they didn't want to stop it until it started reaching elite corners. That's when they started to give a shit. Yeah, drop the low-hanging fruit. Get rid of them. It's a purge. And I would argue that the way they look at Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, this is clearly the way Elon Musk and his crowd and the eugenics crowd look at it, is that we are keeping too many disabled, poor, unproductive, old people alive. If these fuckers could start from scratch with this Elon Musk first principles bullshit, we'd have Logan's Run in less than a decade. The drug war did not cause the overdoses. I appreciate you, Groove Dragon, but that's nowhere near true. The only thing that made them sit up and take notice about fentanyl is that they were afraid it was starting to sneak into areas where the drugs they take might be affected. You could almost track it to. There was a big story. Hold on. Let's see. I want to say it was University of Miami. Okay. Okay. Let's see. There was a specific case. I'm going to see if I can find this one. As UCLA. Okay. Where'd it go? Yeah, counterfeit pills. Here we go. I'm trying to find this. Yeah, here we go. So this is UCLA Health, but I'll show you this. This is why they started to give a shit. And I don't remember, let's see, this is 2022. This is about the time you could start saying like, oh my God, Mexico and fentanyl, Mexico, fentanyl. That's what Trump started running on it, and why people were up in arms about it specifically in a way that they previously weren't. By the way, it was also rising and increasingly available, yada, yada, the same way OxyContin and oxycodone. It came in to fill the gap that the Sacklers finally getting busted, led to a down, like a downward trend in the availability of opioids from traditional sources, over prescription and all that kind of shit. An average of 22 adolescents, 14 to 18 years of age, died in the U.S. each week in 2022 from drug overdoses. 22, 14 to 18-year-olds. 5.2 to 100,000, driven by fentanyl and counterfeit pills, new research finds. This was the turning point when they started to give a fuck. They didn't give a rat's ass when people who knew exactly what they were taking were dying from it. They got worried that kids were experimenting and they started dying. And it's a reasonable fear to have, but these kids thought they were crushing oxy and had gotten used to it, and then it had fentanyl in it because it was fake oxy, and fentanyl was way stronger and it was killing them. That's why they started to care. And it was because it was white kids in relatively middle-class areas. The increase is, however, not due to more illicit drug use, which has in fact fallen over the years, for example, including cannabis. The rate of any illicit drug use among 12th graders had fallen from about 21% to 8% in the 20 years since 2002. Instead, the increase is the result of drugs becoming deadlier due to fentanyl, which is increasingly found in counterfeit oxycodone, benzodiazepines, which is the thing that Trump is on, by the way. The talk about this was that Trump does benzos on prescription and just abuses that prescription, and other prescription pills that fall into the hands of adolescents. And the idea is that they could counterfeit them. And how do I know I'm getting real bennies, right? Or the party ones that he was borrowing once he ran out. Again, chemical yo-yos, these motherfuckers. And now they all got nervous because it was starting to hit Don Jr.'s fucking stash. That's when they started to care. They did not give a shit when white trash people were dying of overdoses in their fucking cars, and we heard these horrible stories, because those people take up space. They're useless eaters, as Henry Kissinger used to say.